Okay, the recording started, so let's get going. Everyone's muted, so that's just to stop the background noise. So if you have any questions through the webinar, please type them in the chat window and I'll answer them as we go along. So today we're going to talk about next generation portals. The team that I work in, we spend a lot of our time doing intranets. In fact, thousands and thousands of hours every kind of few months are spent doing intranets for different people. And what we find is that a lot of them are starting to look very similar. So, you know, some of these sort of rough mock-ups here probably look quite similar to the sorts of intranets that you're used to seeing. You have your typical news kind of features and places to push out documents and corporate communications. However, what's starting to happen is people are starting to work differently. It's less, you know, so much information being pushed from millions of different sources at people. They're constantly being bombarded by this amount of information. We're also all working in these dynamic teams. So, you know, typically now the teams are not co-located in the same office. They're across different offices, they're mobile on all kinds of different devices and all kinds of operating systems. So in order to engage this kind of workforce, we're finding that we need to change some of the ways that we build these kind of model portals to keep people interested and keep them using this content. So, you know, what is a modern portal? We've kind of come up with a few different areas that we think are really good to focus on. People want information and they want information quick and fast. So it needs to be content that is really targeted to people. And by targeted to people, we don't just mean targeted because of your job title or because of the department you're in, but actually targeted based on the sorts of activities that you're typically doing in a system. We'll show you how Office 365 can use Delve to push this kind of content at people. Equally, business is changing every day, so you know we don't want to build up those traditional, very structured information architectures that are based on static departmental links and those kind of things that are very, very hard to kind of change around. These platforms as well, something like Office 365, they're literally changing every day. Microsoft is adding, you know, great value to the platform by pushing out new features on a regular basis. And what this means is that we need to build our intranets and our portals that we put on top of these platforms in a way that we can extend that platform without causing it to break once those new changes come through. Equally now, people are used to using things like Pinterest and all the different kind of websites that are out there, and they want their internal business systems to have similar looks and feels, similar functionality, and work across the broad range of devices that they're using today. So what Microsoft has done as part of Office 365 is created a whole bunch of next generation portals, the first two of which have launched with more to come. So the two we're going to focus on today is Office 365 Video and the Delve People Experiences. We'll also talk about some of the background capabilities that make these possible, being the Office Graph, OneDrive for Business and Office 365 Groups. Now everything that you're going to see today is ready to go experiences, but behind the scenes there's a great API that we can use to extend on that and really leverage those capabilities if we want to build a custom tailored experience based on the business. The most important thing though is how we're delivering these portals is really starting to change. So traditionally we used to do very large waterfall intranets and we'd have all these great meetings and build up, you know, a very large kind of functional specification on what an intranet would be, and then we'd start coding it up and deliver it on top of SharePoint or the chosen platform. But now there's really a big focus on people, and what we want to do is we want to find out what the actual key users of these platforms are going to be and then use that to focus on the right features. There's simply so many pieces of technology that we can choose. We really need that focus of key personas to be able to drive what the key pieces of technology that we're going to see. So typically some of the things that you'll see in the next few slides and the demonstrations that I'm going to do We don't deliver in a big waterfall approach. What we typically do is a diagnostic up front, and then we deliver functionality in a number of sprints while watching what people are using and which pieces are being successful throughout the business. This enables us to have change management layered over the top and make sure we're really targeting those features on the ones that are achieving success in the business, and then modifying the approach for the ones that aren't being so successful based on end user use. We also find that as people start using these systems, their behaviour and hence their needs change as well, so it allows us to adapt as we go along. So first off, we're going to talk about some of the different ways that we're starting to build, that homepage, that really front kind of experience. Rather than, the typical big graphical news rotators, it's often now more focused around information. And this is an example here where we have what we call 3 different pillars of information. Now these kind of pillars that you can see there, being corporate comms, work and communities, are often different based on different businesses, but this is a mock-up based on Empire. So what we have in that first column there is the corporate communications experience, so marketing, HR can push content through to there and have it pinned on the top so that everyone can see it. And then down lower in the list, it actually pushes that corporate information at the end user based on their needs and what they're actually accessing in the portal. In the middle, we actually have the work column there, which is where we can see documents that have been used coming out and actually information coming from a business system around how those projects are tracking, which is one of the key pieces of this business. Then on the end, we can see the community. It's all about sharing information using Office 365 groups, which I'll show towards the end of the session. Also, as mentioned, we want a light level of navigation, so that's where those quick links come out from the side. We really want to navigate through to, there we've got 8 key items. You don't really want more than 10 kind of items in that kind of menu that we can get to quickly. The rest of the information is accessed via search and being pushed through in those pillars of information. Of course, like anything now, it has to work on a mobile device. So, here's it working on an iPhone in that kind of mobile experience where you scroll from top to bottom instead of left to right. A more corporate-based example with a few more graphics is here, but you can see the exact same concept of 3 different pillars of information. In this case, you've got that community piece first, so the groups that people are discussing information in. You've got work in there showing a bit more of those documents and what's actually happening inside the snapshots of those. And then the third pillar in this case is actually a personal feed that comes down to the side of all recently used documents, again from the Delve piece, which I'll show later. And a menu that actually pops out from the bottom. So as you can see, we can have different pillars of information and different looks and feels based on the needs of the business. Well, let's jump in and have a look at some of the video portal and how that works. So video portal's really aimed at providing that Office 365 functionality to be able to consume video, upload video and share it within the organisation. It's hugely scalable and provides great cross-browser, cross-device capability for being able to publish that video out. Now, all these pieces from Microsoft with the new portals that are launched get launched with a minimal amount of functionality and then are extended quite rapidly. And so if we look at how that's happened with Office 365 video, just the recent releases there alone, HTML5 mobile playback has gone across to Windows, Android and iOS. It's become fully responsive and we'll try to show that a little bit later on a phone. There's a phone app for it for iPhone, built-in capabilities for APIs to be able to pull out that information, and a lot more permissions have been added in. There's also a whole bunch of things that are in development. And what you can see at the end of a lot of those items is a number and a UV. That's actually user voice. So basically the way these new features are being added is as a user voice website in which people add in their suggestions for new features, and based on voting for the most popular items in there, they decide which ones they should push up onto the backlog and actually deliver. The next experience that's been released in there is the Delve People experience. Now what we find is, as I mentioned earlier, there's a heap of information being pushed out from all different content sources at people, and it can be quite overwhelming and often confusing and difficult to find that information. One of the first things that people often learn about an organisation and what's happening is people and where people live, the different sort of roles they have in the organisation. Now what Delve allows us to do is actually use that people-based network to be able to navigate through the content and filter on what other people are seeing, what other people are creating, and how they're actually using the content in there as well. And that makes it a lot easier, particularly for those new starters who might know a colleague or a manager or someone in a particular area. They can start navigating through that areas of content via the people in the business as well as those keywords. It's also very, very smart. So behind the scenes, it's got Azure machine learning to push relevant content at people. And what this means is we don't even have to go in and actually search for information. It's actually being pushed out at the user based on all the things that they're doing throughout the portal and many of the different activities that are being performed. As mentioned earlier, all of this has an API on top. So at the moment, the majority of the signals that are in this system are actually based on Office 365 based content. But as it develops, third-party systems will actually be able to push signals into the system and then help control what people are seeing there and pushing information from those other systems in there as well. So now that we've talked through a few different slides, what we might do is flick across to a browser and have a look at some of this content. So here you can see Office 365 on the screen there, and we're actually running it in Chrome. Runs completely fine, of course, in all modern browsers. This video component is just one of the many elements that we can see here in the standard Office 365 waffle of functionality. So I've just clicked on that video screen here, and here we can see my video portal that's loading up. The default screen comes with a number of basic functions where we can see what's trending. These are particularly things that are being clicked on and regularly viewed, and that pushes them up to the top of that trending list. And then we can also see a number of different channels. Like all good videos, we've got the cat video channel there, but we've also got some corporate channels to be able to see content in. So on each of these, we have a level of control as an administrator where we can go in and we can actually change a bunch of those settings to control what's being seen on that front page, and also a bunch of the permissions and capabilities for all those different pieces. It looks like we might just be on a bit of a slow link there. So here we can see the video administrators. As you can see, these are the people that can control that home page and also change permissions for channels and who can create channels. By default, this allows everyone in the organisation to go in and create one of those channels. So often, typically, when you're getting started with one of these features, with this feature, you might want to cut that down to a key number of administrators to be able to create those particular pieces. Otherwise, you end up with a lot of content. This is where we control the spotlight. So you can see I can control all the different videos that we're seeing on the front page. So I can stick some on there by selecting one of these, and it will allow me to browse and pick the particular videos from different areas in my portal. Obviously I can search as well if I've got a large number of videos, and also choose the different channels that I want to show on that home page. So I get that level of control. There is, however, only one video portal per Office 365 tenancy. So it's this central video mechanism that's pushed out to everybody, and then you can control the different channels that people will see. So if we have a look at that channel capability, this will load up, and it's generally a very basic page that lists out those particular channels that we can see. And then on each one of those channels, we then get more capabilities. So if we look at the cloud one, that'll load up, and we can now see the same kind of visuals as on that front page where we get trending, all videos and my videos, the ones that I've uploaded personally. And then I can control the channel settings as well. So similarly on here, I can pick a particular colour for look and feel. Obviously I can delete it because I'm an administrator, but I can also change the permissions, and I get those 3 basic levels as to who owns the channel, so who can delete it and control the main settings, who can add and remove videos, and who can view the videos. And again, by default, these are designed to be very open so that everyone can actually view the videos, and a large number of people can upload those videos as well. Similar to the home page, I also get to control that spotlight feature so that I can change what appears on that first piece there. With the actual video playing itself, it's actually very intelligent, and it automatically detects the sort of connection that we're on and the different devices that we're on. So you can see here it's going through and it's just doing a detection on my connection and picking the right video to load, and I'll just hit pause on that so we don't get double audio. You can see down here it's automatically picked up the quality, but then I do have control to manually select a different level of quality. So if I was over a slow 3G network on a different device, it would have picked that low quality video and automatically downloaded that. I also have the ability to share this out via email, post it across to Yammer to have a conversation on the video, or even embed it in a different web page. So very similar to that YouTube embed feature that most people are familiar with. So with the video experience, it's extremely easy to get new content into here. So if I need to upload a video, it is as simple as going to upload. I can either pick that and actually select the video, or I can really simply drag and drop. Obviously it needs a bit of bandwidth to upload that video depending on the size, and it will then upload it for you and do the automatic conversion. This conversion feature that it's doing can actually take a little bit of time depending on the size of the video, but this is where it's going through and doing that encoding to make sure that when it does that automatic detection of capability of the internet link, it has all those different formats that it needs to play cross-browser and cross video size and length. So that will go through there. As soon as it's processed, it appears for viewing. If at any time I want to check how it's processing, I can actually do that from that My Video capability. So you see it there, and it will see it's still sitting in processing for the next few minutes while it progresses that one through. So that's the basic functionality of Office 365 Video. Now I want to jump across into Delve. And we can see here this is a test Delve page on my tenancy where I've actually gone in as myself, and you can see it's pushing a whole bunch of content at me based on my activities that I've been performing. It's not just, a flat view of the information. You can see it's actually putting previews into a lot of the content, so I can actually see those videos that I've been uploading. I can see particular documents I've been editing and exactly where they are and what that content is right across the tenancy. There's a lot of different content there. I can then drill down on this side here into different people and also search for different content. So, for example, you can see a few people here that I've recently been doing work with. That's why they're particularly in that people column. And I can see all the things that they've been doing as well. Now, of course, just like any Office 365 portal, everything on here is fully security trimmed. So, if I don't have access to that content, I will not see the activity at all being shown up on this page. It's only the items that we mutually have access to that appear. I can also do a search. So when I do searches, it shows me in this particular view, you can see content from all different people based on particular terms. So, I can pick people if they happen to have that word in it, but it's also showing up all that different content. And then we also have the capability to show what are called boards. Boards is the first area where we actually go in and we can start to curate a lot of this content that we're seeing and group it together in kind of these pin boards, like similar to a Pinterest-like experience, but within the organisation, to be able to show useful information without moving it around. So, it's as simple as when I'm searching for content and I find something relevant that I want to pin to that board, You can see actually, sorry, if I go back to home, we'll just search for something that's not already in that board. What I can do is down here, you can see any of this content. I can just click that add to board and I start typing the board name, and it will then auto-complete and add it to that particular board. All boards are open by default, so again I get that capability to see any of those boards that have been created when I'm searching for content. But similar to everything in Delve, if I was to go to this board and let's say I didn't have access to this particular document here, I wouldn't actually see it. I would just see the board itself without that single piece of content. You can also see what's happening in the board, so we can see who added it, when it was added, and what the content is. In this particular case, I've chosen to follow this board because it's one that I use frequently. So that's why I actually see it pinned down here. If I unfollow it, you'll see it disappears from my kind of quick links there, and it's no longer pinned, so I can see it on the content. All right. Let's just try, just want to connect to one different area. As I mentioned, all of this content is also visible on mobile devices. We'll just see if we can get the emulator going to actually show that capability. So I'll just switch that across to here. So what you can actually see, let me see if I can make that a little bit bigger, is actually that same video experience, in this case on a phone device. You can see that I have all the capabilities to load items similar to the other experience where I had the waffle there. I can go into video, I can pick that particular video, the video homepage, and it will show me the items that are trending. I can also play any of these videos because they're all HTML5 and compliant with mobile device loading. Equally, I can go into Delve and many of the other experiences on those devices as well. And just to prove that it deals with different form factors, as I switch my phone around, you can see that it's automatically changing the rendering to suit whatever layout I have in that particular device. So fully functional and responsive without me having to do any kind of custom development or anything in there. All right, so we will jump back to the slides. Okay, so there were the first two ready-built portals that Microsoft have launched into Office 365. So as part of having that Office 365 subscription, those two experiences just come along for free and are pieces that we can use. So where they kind of sit in terms of knowledge management is we start to get that board's capability to do lightweight collection of information and sharing within an organisation. So, you don't quite need a full team site or those kind of capabilities. It really is just curating, particular information and sharing it out with everybody. The next features that are coming into this platform will allow even more structured knowledge management. So they'll be launching microsites, which will allow more control over what's going into those experiences. So when we go into microsites and Infopedia, which is a personalised knowledge management gateway, that allows administrative control around approvals and articles to be created around that content as well, so to explain the content that's grouped together a little bit more. But those features are coming on the roadmap for Office 365. The next big feature that we're actually using a lot in these next generation portals to get people onto the platform and start collaborating and talking together about a lot of information is Office 365 Groups. Groups is really the first feature that I've seen that ties together all the different pieces of the Office 365 platform in a cohesive way for end users to use. So what actually happens is when we create an Office 365 group, it will actually push out functionality to create the necessary components in Outlook, OneDrive, OneNote, Calendar, and actually even across dynamic CRM and other pieces of the platform. So to give you an idea how a lot of that works, here's the group conversation view. What I really like about this piece is it's exactly like a distribution list. So it lives in that Outlook component, and here this is the online version of Outlook, and you can see it's a conversation backwards and forwards. You can actually email that group as well, so you can really treat it like a distribution list, and you get notifications in your inbox of what's happening in that group so that you can follow along with those conversations if you're subscribed to it. By default, again, all groups are public, so it's really trying to have that open experience for everybody to be able to navigate through and see this information and be part of this information. But, you know, obviously we're all pretty familiar with those kind of email distribution lists. Where it starts to get more powerful is as it connects in those other parts of the Office 365 platform. So here we have the files view, and what this allows us to do is to upload files to be shared with this specific group. I can do that without the need for a full team site. I just upload them here and they're shared across. And I can also share files from anywhere within my portal without moving it, just like with a normal security group, and I'll demonstrate that in a minute. Then my other favourite feature is the calendar. So what I can do here is in the calendar view, I can book meetings for the entire group, being able to see when all the members are available, and very easily schedule those kind of group events that are often necessary with these kind of conversations. Now, of course, if it's not the sort of group that actually has those kind of meetings, you don't need to use this feature if you don't need it. But really useful for scheduling different pieces with that group of people and having it synchronized back to your full main calendar. Also, there's the group OneNote. We use this a lot for making notes, particularly as meetings occur or different activities occur on the platform. And this works both in the online view, which is what you can see here, but also in the OneNote client. So you can download that and actually has that information there. All of this information not only works in the web browser, but this is it also working here in Office 2016, which launched last week. So in the Office 2016 client, you can see down the side there, I've actually got my groups appearing just below my regular inbox. These are all the groups that I'm following, and I can then have that conversation backwards and forwards. I can talk, reply to messages, link through to the calendar, files, notebook, and I can even see pictures and information on all the people that are part of that group. If I don't have Office 2016, at the moment I just only get that web-based view of the particular group. So what I really like about this group's experience is it collects together all that information, being conversations, calendars, files, and a OneNote, so that if, halfway through, let's say we've got a new person that wants to know about portal technologies, they can come in even after this group's been running for months or longer time and be able to see that full conversation flow, all those files and all the information shared in that OneNote notebook, so they get the history and context as to what's happened. So let's have a look at what that looks like in an actual Office 365 tenancy. So there's a couple of different ways that you can start accessing this. One of the most common ways is through the OneDrive. So you can see here, this is my OneDrive where I've uploaded all my files to, but I can also see groups down the side here. And in this particular case, again, like I said, these are the ones that I'm subscribed to. I can go through to here and this will actually bring up the capabilities to create a new group through the actual Outlook area. There we go, it's just loading up. While that's loading, we'll have a look at some of, there we go. So there's our create group dialog. You can see I can create them. There is administrative control over all these capabilities as well. So what I can do is have things like naming conventions. I can have particular words that I don't want to allow to appear into a name of a group. And I can add descriptions on those as well. Those descriptions obviously become important as we start to get a lot of these groups into the system. We can also control who can create groups as well. By default, it's quite a wide wide allowance to let people create groups, but there is policy control that we can lock that down to a key number of users if you want to do that. All groups are open, private, public by default, and that means anyone can see what's happening inside that group at any time. But if you have particular needs for a private group, we can turn it to private, and that will allow approval before people see any of that content inside there. We can also choose to subscribe new members. That subscription is what allows people to see their conversations and calendars of events appearing in the inbox. That pushes it through to their regular calendar and their regular Outlook inbox. Otherwise, if we don't select that one, they will have to browse to the group to see any of that content. That'll go off behind the scenes, and what that's doing is it's provisioning that particular group for me and pushing through all the different pieces that I need. While that's happening, what we'll do is I'll just show the experience of sharing a file with a group. So just like any file within Office 365, I can pick share, and then as I would with a normal user, I can type group names into this actual share dialog, and that will actually share that file with that particular group. And now if we go back, we'll just upload that into a different browser while that's loading through. That will now appear in the shared with me kind of area. So that's a particular files, and then we've got shared with us where we can actually see those particular files. Now what it's done in that case is it hasn't actually moved any of those files. It's actually just shared a link across into this particular area. So if we look at the hyperlinks for these things, they are actually still in their original location. So an excellent way to kind of, bring attention to particular information without moving it around into that group. And as you can see, those files I see in my OneDrive kind of experience there. There we go, the group got loaded, and now I can add particular members to it. So I can, pick those members just with a dialogue there, or I can let people self-subscribe to the group as well. Or obviously as an administrator, I can go back in any time and add those particular members to that group as well. In the administration area, I can actually choose to delete those groups. I can add those groups back. I can add groups centrally. And of course, there's a whole bunch of scripting commandlets on top of all of this where I can actually go through and perform administrative capabilities. So obviously the selection of users is quite good if you're only going to add a few key users to there. But we don't actually have the capability to add distribution lists or groups within those groups. So if you did need to add a large number of users to one of these Office 365 groups, that will be a common use for that scripting kind of capability, because you'd upload a CSV file of usernames and bulk add them to there. So there we go, we've got our group, it's all created now. You can see I'm subscribed by default because I created it. I've got my files area. I've got all my different pieces in there. I can edit the group, I can leave the group, and I can also start a conversation. If we go over to one of the groups that was previously created though, we'll see a little bit more activity. Let's see how it's going. And then we'll be able to look at the calendar as well once that loads and see how that overlays with a personal calendar. So, here's a lot of the conversations. You can see that a new document was added. So because of that, it's actually notified the group, and that's a really good way so that you don't have to keep, just manually checking that kind of files dialogue. As soon as it's shared, you get the notification of that in there, and I can reply and have conversations backwards and forwards with the group on that. Let's jump across to that calendar area where we can start to look in here. And you can see this portal technology group has been having a number of different kind of events. You can see my calendar in blue and its meetings in green. So I get that combined view of both of the things that are happening. And if I was to go through and create new meetings, I can do that and I can use the scheduling assistant to actually then see different members of the groups and when they're actually available. So they'll all appear down this side and we can see if there's a conflict, move the meeting around and make sure it's at a time that everyone can do that. Very nice, easy way to create those bulk kind of meetings. We've also got the members view and the notebook as well to be able to see that OneNote capability. As I said, very common that, you know, if we're having meetings, particularly meetings where everyone's not located in the same location, we can actually type notes in here and store all that information. We even use it for meeting notes when we are all physically located in the same kind of geographic location, because it allows us to be able to have that history and that, you know, definition of what's happening as well. All right, so that's the OneNote capabilities in there. And we've gone through and we've uploaded the video pieces as well. All right, we're just going to flip back to the slides. So that was a brief bit of functionality of Office 365 groups. Really powerful experience there where we get that combination of email-based distribution lists that people are very commonly used to dealing with, but also combined with the ability to do files, sharing of OneNote and that kind of, you know, greater Office 365 functionality. There's a lot of investment going into this feature moving forward, and you'll see, you know, really rapidly a whole bunch of new features coming. This is a list of new features that were going to be released as of about a month ago, and already several of these have been dropped. So Outlook 2016 arrived last week, and the mobile app has actually been launched as well, which I'll show screenshots of in the next slide here. Coming soon, there'll be that Office Graph and Delve integration. So as we search for information and you know, see information in that Office, in that Delve experience, we'll start to see information pushed from those groups so that we can see those conversations that are happening there rather than just documents that are being uploaded. Our capability to integrate with Skype's coming, files and pages, and also the capability to invite external users. Also in preview at the moment is the ability to have it linked in with Dynamics CRM. As well as the capability to have conversations in groups on Power BI has also just been launched. There's also a whole bunch of administrative features that are actually, oops, sorry about that, a bunch of administrative features that are actually being launched in there as well to allow a bit more ability to perform administration. So at the moment there's good capabilities to create groups and change permissions, but some of the features that are being added as you get to that more enterprise scale is the ability to expire inactive groups over time. So if no one's, you know, had any activity in that group, you probably want to archive that off. You might have a need to put it in the e-discovery feature or something like that for a certain period of time, but drop the kind of the ability for people to search and subscribe to that group that's no longer being used. At the moment, if you wanted to do that kind of capability, you'd have to do it yourself using the user interface. So here's a mobile experience. You get that ability to come in and actually have a look at groups. So you can see on a tablet device, you're typically going to use probably the Outlook experience. But on the smaller phones, that group app was actually launched last week. So you can actually download that across the various different devices, connect it up to your Office 365 tenancy, and you actually have that dedicated groups experience there if you want to use that particular app. Here is groups starting to appear in Delve, so we can start to see that information being pushed through, and also the dynamic CRM piece. So the way this whole capability is being built is it's designed that the different SKUs of Office 365 you have can be integrated into groups if you choose them to be. So if you don't have dynamic CRM, of course you won't get this capability, but if you do have that particular license, you'll start to see the ability to create an Office 365 group, as you can see here from dynamic CRM. Similar with Power BI, we'll be able to, you know, share and have a group based around that Power BI dashboard to discuss that content. You can actually create it from that particular interface. And those are really just the first two kind of integration experiences that have been launched. It's deliberately designed so that many more of those can be added in as time goes on. So as you can see, they're the first few different portal experiences that have been launched, some pretty powerful stuff that comes along for the ride in Office 365. So we get that capability to provide video experiences right throughout the portal, not only through that central portal, video portal experience, but by using that embed capability, we can put that video content on other pages right throughout that experience, or even on third-party systems as long as they can authenticate through to Office 365. Then we've got the Delve people experience where we can actually go through and we can start to actually view content based on people and have content pushed at us using Azure Machine Learning to be a more intelligent way of being able to find this content without us constantly having to search through. Moving forward, there's going to be a lot more functionality that pushes through that really changes the way Office 365 starts to work. And if we have a look at one of the features here, that's a little bit of a preview of some of that. If I go into my profile, blogs used to be, quite a normal SharePoint page editing experience. But now when I create a new blog post, you'll see I get the first view of this new authoring canvas. It is much like the sway capability if you've used that functionality that's actually launched through here for full sways. I can add images and that will allow me to browse both on my device, on my OneDrive, and actually add images into that content. And then I can go through and author a whole bunch of capabilities through there, and it's actually saving it behind the scenes. It will let me embed videos from my video portal, upload documents, and perform a whole bunch of rich authoring, which it will then adapt to the different devices that render it. And that's the first place we've seen that this new authoring canvas come in. In the future, this will be pushed through a lot more capabilities. It's very similar to what we're actually seeing in that sway kind of capability as well. So what we're actually finding is now with the way sway works, we're able to go through and create visual experiences in sway that allows us to link together a lot of that Office 365 content in a visually appealing way across different devices without the difficulty in editing Office 365 pages. Very similar to PowerPoint, but a bit more designed for cross-device and browser-based publishing. So here, for example, we can see that the picture uploaded. On a picture, I have the capability to pick focus points, and that allows me to control which parts of the picture is actually seen on a smaller device. So if I pick this particular area here, on a cropped phone, which we can see down there, it will ensure that that part of the picture is always shown. Usually relevant for those kind of group photos and those kind of things. I go through and I can change all the different editing and pick all the different pieces that I want in there. And then it gives me the capability to just change the visual look and feel. It's really great for someone like me that's not very good at visual design stuff. So you can see there's a few different remixes we've gone through. Oh, that one's a bit nicer. Let's try a different one. It's a very different green that we've actually got loaded up, and you can see it's just picked all the different kind of layouts and the different fonts for that content that goes through. If I want a bit more control over that, so here's one where it's picked, a very different background and a top to bottom kind of layout. I do actually have the capability to pick designs myself, pick the navigation myself, and really kind of control it if you've got that visual kind of capability. So that's really good for non-technical users to go through and create content. We're pushing out a lot of those news features, a lot of the newsletters for teams and those kind of things using that capability. Right, so just to return to the slides, you can see now we've got a bunch of those powerful Office 365 capabilities, and the trick really becomes which pieces do we roll out and what do we roll out in order for the organisation to be effective. And we do find that changes based on the priorities of the organisation. So that's where those personas come in, so that we can choose the areas of focus to get people onto the platform. Of course, there can be some technical limitations as well that might control the speed of rollout of some of these features. So that groups capability, as you saw, it was in the Outlook area, so that requires you to have email configured with Office 365 and either fully in Office 365 or at a minimum in a hybrid manner. And without that capability, you can't really use that groups functionality. So, you might choose to use Yammer or one of the other functions instead if you're not quite ready for that particular piece. So they're all the main pieces that I wanted to show in terms of the next generation portal's capabilities. Hopefully giving you some ideas of all those different pieces that we can pull in to create a big interactive kind of portal that people are going to really get in and start using actively. I might open it up for particular questions. Okay. So one, I can see, yep, so we can't miss groups. Yeah, with that one's answered. Is there any other questions that anyone wanted to ask through, or shall we close it off? What are your thoughts on how the forthcoming Infopedia could be used? So I really like what I've seen of the screenshots of Infopedia. Obviously, it's not launched yet, so we don't know the full capabilities there. But it looks like that basic kind of information management experience for a knowledge-based kind of portal. So there's a number of different places you could use that depending on your organisation. Lots of places have that kind of central knowledge base where you collect together articles. Many people use different wiki products for that kind of thing as well, and that's where I think that really sits in terms of creating a bunch of that content that's all linked together for people to use. Of course, like any new kind of functionality in Office 365 though, I guess we'll have to see what those features are like when it launches and then adjust based on that. But the thing that I love about it is everything I've seen is based on that new authoring canvas, so super easy for non-technical users to create visually appealing content, link in content from other places in the portal. So I really like that user-based experience they put in there. Any other questions? All right, that looks like it's all the questions for today, so we might close off the recording. If you do want any information on any of these features, obviously we'd love to come out and chat to you guys. Yeah, I believe everyone on the webinar will get a link to this recording as some reference material. I know it'll go up on our website as well afterwards. So yeah, if there are any other questions, shoot them through on email. Just my email is elaine.vanbergen@empire.com, or you can always contact me on Twitter and other social media as well. Thanks for your time, guys.